Therefore, when dealing with the issue concerning child custody and visitation, you need to deal with the matter from a practical point of view. Theory is good. For example, where the theory will say the mother, at a child's young age, if a child is very young, she would have to be the primary caregiver. Of course, if a child is born, who would be better to look after the child than the mother? Of course, there are exceptions. If the mother cannot care for the child, the mother is extremely ill, she's on drugs, she's abusive, she is psychotic, then of course another party will have to look after the minor child. But the general answer would be, if a child is extremely young, the mother would have to care for the child primarily, and the father obviously has to be involved in assisting with the caring of the child as best he can. But as the child grows older, things change. Then it happens many times that the father becomes the primary caregiver. The mother is the one that goes to work. She's the one that has to care for the family. Alternatively, both parties goes to work. And there cannot, in my view, always be a preference towards one party over the other. For example, the mother over the father. In any given scenario, you can apply the facts, and the facts might turn out to be in favor of one parent over another parent, despite a stereotype. And I'll allude it to one more time, the stereotype saying that mothers are better caregivers than fathers. I do not follow the stereotype. I look at the matter, the case, on the facts and as it is presented. If the facts support one parent being the primary caregiver, then I will argue that. For example, if the facts support that the mother should be the primary caregiver, I will fight for my client and try my best that that be applied. If the facts support that the father would be the better primary caregiver, of course, I will fight for that. I do not go into legal matters blindly or based upon pre-existing stereotypes or prejudices in our law. I deal with matters as they should be, and that's how you get really good results. I would like to encourage you, please partake in this webinar, pose questions. I'll be happy to answer them for you. And you're welcome to call in, as I mentioned earlier on, using our Zoom link. Please make use of the Advocate Mohammed Abduroaf Facebook page. If you are watching this video from a different platform, from a different group, please note I cannot see those comments. For example, the Our Lawyer page, the Child Custody and Child Maintenance page, and so on. I have noticed many people, they pose questions later, commenting on the video while they're watching the video. Unfortunately, I cannot deal with those specific questions. You'll have to pose those questions live while we are online. It's obviously difficult because we have things to do during the day, and you'll have to actively, if you want to give somebody an answer, you need to give somebody a proper answer, not a thumbs up or limited data. Therefore, I would prefer to interact with you. Should you pose a question via the Zoom, we'll obviously interact. Or should you pose a question via the Facebook Live, where you type in your question, I will answer your question. I'll try my best. However, I might have additional questions for you, and I would like you to interact with me. So my responses will not be typed out, it will be orally given. Let us move on with the specific topic. As I mentioned earlier on, the topic today, child custody and visitation. What should parents work towards? The ultimate aim in a child custody and visitation scenario, and we know what the scenario entails. The scenario entails the parents no longer living together, or they never live together ever, but they do not live together, and we have a child in the middle. The ultimate aim is not to give the mother custody or the father custody, or for the parties to have joint custody where the child is 1 week with the mother and 1 week with the father. That is not the aim. No way would I ever say that. The aim is to give one parent more contact or less contact, or to give the child equal contact with both parents. That's not my aim. The aim is to find a scenario and find a solution that is best fit for your specific family. That's very important. Each family is different. Each child is different. Ages are different. Needs are different. People live in different locations. different distances from each other, and so on. And therefore, to say that it will be best for every child to live half with one parent and half with another parent is not dealing with the matter properly. That might be an ideal for some people, it might be not be an ideal for other people. If you are a parent and you work very hard and you are only available on a weekend because you are working all the time, and that was a scenario when the child was conceived, it wouldn't make sense to place a child in your care for half the time. Who will look after the child? Nannies, third parties, etc. Whereby the other party has more time, is more available to care for the child because that specific parent might work during the day but is able to take the child to school and collect the child in the afternoon or from daycare and so on. So therefore, the ultimate aim and ultimate idea behind dealing with child custody and visitation issues is to find a workable solution for your specific family and not a solution based upon ego, based upon stereotype, etc. That's very important to note. And when I say stereotype and when I say ego, I'm referring to a scenario where the parties have separated, but the mother says no. The father had an affair, he caught on some things. Therefore, because he left me, or because he's engaged and is getting married to somebody else, I believe now, based upon that, I want to have primary care. He should have limited contact to the minor child. Your whole basis, your whole foundation of dealing with this matter is no longer child-centered, or it might never have been child-centered, but the facts are, it is not child-centered. It's now based upon ego, emotions, focusing on what's best for you and what not best for the scenario for the minor child, which is important. We need to focus on what's best for the child. I will not be naive and expect people and families to change their entire lifestyles in order to focus on what's best for the minor child or live the entire life focusing on what's best for the child. For example, if the father can obtain a really good job elsewhere, he should say, no, I do not want to take that job because I will not be able to see my child every day for part of the day, etc. If it is best for the parent to get a better job and to better himself, and ultimately the minor child will benefit thereby, then by all means. So in moving forward with these other matters, you need to focus on what's best for the child and what is best for the family and in the scenario. I would hate to have a scenario where a party would argue and fight and say, I need to have the child on Christmas Day every year for the second half. It's fine. Perfect. There's nothing wrong with that scenario. However, when it comes to Christmas Day, that specific parent is never available. He or she is now busy with his family wherever they are. They went on holiday and he cannot exercise contact, or she cannot exercise contact in terms of this agreement that the parties have made. Therefore, it's unworkable. It doesn't make sense. It should not have been agreed upon in the first place or argued for in the first place. For the sole reason, it's not a workable solution. Therefore, depending upon the scenario, depending upon the family, depending upon various factors, if it makes sense and it's logical under the circumstances for a parent to have contact with a child once a month, for half a day, for an hour, based upon the facts, and it's workable, the minor child can plan his or her life on that. The child will not be disappointed because one parent promised to have contact on a certain day, fought for it, argued for it, and then when it comes to that specific day, for argument's sake, here we say the mother is now left to pacify the child. The child is waiting outside with his backpack, with a lot of pictures in there which he had drawn for the dad, to show for the dad, or his new toy. Let's say it's a young child and he wants to show off to the dad. And all of a sudden, that Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock, the dad sends a WhatsApp message advising the mom, sorry, I cannot make it. I made other plans. I'll try next week. Who loses out here? Obviously the minor child, not the parents. The parents can move on. They are adults. They should be able to deal with this emotional crisis or emotional issues which they are facing. But the minor child loses out. Therefore, let me now stop with the theory and deal with the issue concerning child custody and visitation. What should parents work towards? As I mentioned early on, you guys need to work on a workable solution. I like dealing with a scenario. I like stipulating there are 365 days in a year, 30 days in a month. Let's work with that, or work on a 4-week basis. What happens on the Monday morning or the first of the month? Where is the child? Is the child at the mother's house or the father's house? Let's say we say the child is at the mother's house. How can you unpack this? The mother might be in the best position to take the child to school. Alternatively, she might not be. She might not be. She might start work later on, and the father is available and he can come collect the child, take the child to school, and the mother can collect the child. So you have to work towards something, and you need to unpack it. If the parties are now arguing and say, no, both of us are able to take the minor child to school, but then obviously can be argued that, mom, you had the child the entire night. You had the child the entire morning until breakfast time. Give me the opportunity to take the child to school, but tomorrow morning you can take the child to school. Because we all do know that there are certain type of communications and chats that take place in the car before the child goes to school. Work and try to negotiate and try to compromise for what is best in a minor child. That's very important. I do not believe in templates. I might have 1,000 on my computer at the office, 1,000 scenarios, 1,000 parenting plans, 1,000 consent papers, 1,000 settlement agreements. I have them. There are. My hard drive is full of those documentation. But although I have 1,000 of them, it does not mean any one of them will fit your family, your specific family, and your specific needs. The ultimate idea, the ultimate aim is to work what's best for the minor child. And I do not take for 1 second granted that all families are the same, as I mentioned earlier on. You might have a step family, you might have your own family. You might have your own family and you're caught on a bit of some things and you made another woman pregnant and she might have her own family as well. This happens, this comes to my desk all the time. These are the scenarios where the problem is there's a minor child involved. How can you work around it? If you have your own family, you have your own family, and there's another minor child that popped up somewhere else, you cannot necessarily change your family situation because you have your own kids to deal with. But at the same time, you need to focus on the minor child. Therefore, I do not believe in templates. I believe in working on things pragmatically, finding solutions where the parties need to sit down and work on and unpack how can we be the best possible parents for this minor child. Although we are not married to each other, we are not seeing each other, we might have had a one single encounter, whatever the case may be, but there is a minor child involved. Let us work together as best as possible on figuring out what is the best parenting arrangement, custody arrangement, visitation arrangement for that specific minor child. I hope you guys are following where I'm going to. The law is something else. Ultimately, the courts and the law, they expect parents to be reasonable. Why would you want to take your case to a judge or to a court of law and have the judge or the magistrate decide on the future of your specific child and your parenting arrangements? It doesn't make sense to me. And the reason why I'm saying so is you know your child very well. You know the other party very well. You understand the dynamics. You understand the situation. You understand everything. Well, perfectly fine. You understand your child. The child is 5 years old. You understand the child's needs. You know how far the schools are, how much petrol they require, who the teachers are, etc. What works for you. Now you start drafting or making an application to court. You take the matter to court. You might take it to a family advocate's office. You might take it to a social worker as well. But let us say the social worker deals with your file and they spend 2-3 hours with you. Let's say 4 hours with you, or the child with you and the other party. 4 hours of their time spent on your specific file. The matter ultimately goes to court. The court spends an hour, let's say, an hour or two, perusing through all the documentation, through all the reports, etc. And then the court listens to some lawyers arguing the matter, or you presenting your case. So in total, the court spent 4 hours on your file, 4 hours. The social worker spent another 4 hours on your file, 8 hours of time people spent on your case. And they have to make a decision that will be binding upon you and the other party and the minor child. This affects your entire life going forward for the next 13 years because the child is now 5 years old. Do you want to leave it to a third party? to make it such a robust and such a quick decision. Yes, they might apply their mind a bit longer. Let's say, be conservative here and say the judge goes back home and he thinks about the matter and makes a decision the next day. Be that as it may, the parties and the persons who are best capable of deciding on what's best for your child are you, the parents. Yes, we'll have the situation and the question being posed to me, but the other party is not willing to agree. The other party is being unreasonable. Yes, that happens all the time. It happens most of the time. And it's funny, if you ask the other party that question, he or she will say exactly the same thing. He or she will say, the other party is unreasonable. He or she is not willing to agree. The other party only wants what is best for him or her. So where does it leave us? What is the problem here? The problem is not with the parents per se, with themselves. They're not drug dealers and, how can I say now, drug addicts and people with shady backgrounds, etc. They are normal people. They are parents. At some point, the mother and the dad, they loved each other. They were in a relationship. How on earth did this child come about? There had to be some type of connection between the parents. But when the parents are now asked, or they're forced now to deal with this child that was born, they cannot see eye to eye. They cannot see reason. They start arguing. I appeared in court a few weeks ago, and the magistrate used a very good example. She said, the mother and the father are like Blitz and a matcher. They should not be together. Or when they are together, they start fighting and start arguing. But they do not understand that there is a purpose behind the two. The match is there to do something and the blitz is there to do something. And the same with the mom and dad. They have a purpose in the child's life. Therefore, I always recommend mediation. Be to a professional person. You know, I dealt with cases in the past where the mother and the father, they've been embroiled in litigation. They've been in court for, let's say, 5 years. 5 years in the maintenance court, domestic violence court, in the child custody court, high court, whatever the case may be. And they never once sat together and discussed the issues at hand. Yes, maybe the maintenance court's office, but it was more like money. Domestic violence court, there are problems. But they never sat down with a professional person, civilly, where the mother speaks. And she speaks and she says, these are the problems I have with the father. And the father is forced to listen, because he will get his half an hour later on, and he should know that. And that's what the mediator does. The professional person does that. It sets down the ground rules. And by that exercise, by the mother speaking, forcing the other party to listen, the other party might not agree, the father might not agree immediately, but he will have to listen, and he'll have to ponder and have to go home, because previously, for the last 5 years, for the previous 5 years, what happened? Whenever the father speaks, what happens? The mother doesn't listen. What she does is she starts preparing her response, her argument to the father. And exactly the same the father does. Or what he does is he just blanks out. Or he does the same. He prepares his argument to the mother. And an argument which he may have prepared way in advance, because he knows his mother keeps on bringing up the specific point. He keeps on bringing up the point that that you met another woman, or this or that. I do not want to come with silly examples here, but those are examples generally. And they never ever spoke to each other, listening and pondering what the other party is saying. And when they leave that meeting, I'm saying this unorganized meeting or the discussion they have where they argue, they cannot remember what the other party said. All that they know is what they said. Therefore, I recommend mediation. Speak to a professional person. Going back to my scenario, and I'm jumping here. Going back to my scenario, the mother speaks for half an hour. That's her first part of the session. She spoke. And the father listened. Or the father tried to listen, or he was forced to listen. He had to take some notes now. Then the father speaks. Now finally, first time ever, the mother now listens to the father, as early on the father listened to the mother. Now she gets a chance to see the action. Why is he acting in a certain way? Why does he not want the minor child to visit X, Y, and Z? Why does he want to have a child on a Saturday morning as opposed to a Sunday afternoon? There could be good reasons. One could be work, one could be extramural activities on his part, whatever the case may be. It could be family commitments, it could be other commitments. And then finally, they start listening to each other, they start speaking to each other. And you know what the beautiful thing about that is? Yes, they may not agree upon anything that day. There has to be a follow-up meeting. But when she goes home and when he goes home, they know this battle is not fought with speaking, with attacking, because that's not allowed in the mediation session, in the specific mediation session, if you say in front of me. It's about discussing. So she cannot go home and start thinking of arguments. She has to start thinking of solutions on how to resolve this matter, because that is how these mediation sessions are being presented, solution-based, where we focus on resolving matters as opposed to finding arguments and responses to certain type of issues. So the mother might have to think, okay, the father is mentioning that he cannot collect the minor child on a Sunday because on a Sunday morning he has to take his mother to hospital, or wherever he must take his mom. Yes, in the past he has mentioned it, but in her argument always was, you keep on focusing on your mom, keep on focusing on your mom, keep on focusing on your family and forgetting about your child. Because whenever he does not agree to what the mother says, the mother takes offense by it and believes that he is now neglecting his child. Although he has other commitments, and that happens all the time. Then the mother starts thinking, okay, let me give in on this one. Let him take his mom. But on Saturday, it's possible for him to have contact because I can go out with my friends, I can take my other kids out, whatever the case may be. Where I'm going to with the scenario is you guys need to start discussing matters, speaking, and trying to find a professional middleman or person in the middle that will allow you to express yourselves. Because part of the frustration would be whenever you try to express yourself, the other party blanks out or argues back. So it's like noise, you know, who can make the most noise? Nobody speaks nobody speaks and the other person listens. It's always where both parties speak at the same time. So, for example, whenever the father in my scenario hears the word mother, if he starts speaking up and say something, although the mother might be trying, when he's referred to his mommy, although the mother of the child is trying to compromise possibly, but he heard the word mother, or you heard the word your family, or you heard the word your sister, automatically that just brings up fire. It lights up the fire in him and he doesn't listen to the other party. So thank you for those of you who are watching this webinar. I'm seeing quite a few people online. Thank you for that and for listening to me, my 2 cents which I have to offer. And to conclude on the specific webinar, on this video, child custody and visitation, what should parents work towards? I think you know exactly what I'm saying. Work towards finding a perfect solution for your specific family. Considering everything, considering the fact that the father, for example, in our scenario, is very busy, or consider the fact that the mother got a very hectic social routine. She has to go to places. Don't try to change the other party. The other party is that way inclined. Many people come to my office and they complain and they love doing this. And I have to stop them because they're paying for the consultation, and heaven forbid if I in the consultation and I ask the party and I tell my client, you know, we need to reschedule for another consultation and I have to pay me again because you spent 90% of the time bad-mouthing the other party. And I'll ask him, Mr. Abduroaf, advocate, why did you allow me to do that? I said, you wanted to speak. So I stopped him very early in the tracks. They can badmouth the other party. You're welcome to do that. It's your time, but all that I tell the client is, you know, those are issues between the two of you, unless it's relevant to the specific case. There's something else. But spending the entire consultation talking bad about the other party, someone needs to come and stop them so we can focus on what's important. Now, I can do that because you are paying me for my time, but when parents who have issues with each other are discussing certain topics, you cannot stop the other one. They'll find it insulting, and who are you to tell me not to speak? You follow me? I'm going to. So, having said that, please work towards finding the best solution for you and your family, and I hope that through this webinar and through these discussions, we can start changing the mindset of parents out there, not believing in the stereotype that I'm the mom, I'm supposed to have custody. That is fine. You can have the thought that because you believe it's best for the child to stay with you. But remember, each family is different. And how the other party exercises contact and how you exercise primary care and how do we decide the child's life going forward will have to have the buy-in of both parents, of both sides. Because this scenario might not be able to work, but through discussions and through negotiations and through talk, I'm certain you will find a scenario that will work for your family and not leave it in the hands of the court. Thank you very much for your time. Have a lovely day and I hope to see you online soon.